Hi, everybody. Welcome in. We're just going to give it a couple seconds for some more folks to join us, but we're so happy to have you here today to talk about Guidebook. Exciting stuff.
And Northeastern.
And Northeastern. Northeastern
And
and Guidebook, you know.
curious where everyone's joining from. If you can pop that in the chat. Classic start of a webinar
Oh,
question.
yeah. I am here in Boston on Northeastern's Boston campus, so that's where I'm coming to you live from here on the East Coast.
I'm in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Are participants able to chat?
That's a great question. They
Sure.
should be able to. Um,
Oh, the joys of Zoom.
I know I'm very used to Google Meet. That's what we use here at Guidebook, and so um, I am not as. I feel like I've forgotten how to use Zoom.
Mhm. Oh, we have a Q&A. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah.
Well, if people have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A. It doesn't look like chat is open to attendees, but it looks like we've gotten a good crowd in here. So,
Oh, I just opened chat. I just found a way to
oh,
do it.
perfect. So chat and Q&A are open, so feel free to chat with each other. If you have any questions, throw it in the Q&A box and we'll get started.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, some other folks might trickle in, but yeah, we will go ahead and get started. So first off, thank you for joining us so much. Leilani and I actually presented this at CIVSA this past year in June. So if you're not familiar with CIVSA, that is the National Association for like visitor centers and admissions teams. So we presented this at the annual conference, had some good feedback, and so thought it would be nice to share with the rest of the guidebook community in case it helps spark any ideas or answer any questions you may have. So there is a Q&A box. Feel free to pop questions in there throughout the presentation. We will have time at the very end dedicated to Q&A. So we might not get to your question right away, but rest assured, we will make sure that you are leaving here with an answer. So today we are chatting about how Northeastern specifically transformed their Prospective and Admitted Student Days events with Guidebook. So you can, yeah, perfect. So quick session roadmap, introduce ourselves so you know who the heck is talking to you. Kind of give an overview of admissions at Northeastern. What is the structure? What does it look like? Talk a little bit about events prior to 2023, which is when Northeastern brought Guidebook on. And then kind of what happened after we were introduced and started working together. What changed? What impact has it had on the events, the students' experience? And then, like I said, we'll have at the very end some time for Q&A. So that is our roadmap. My name is Casey. I work at Guidebook. I'm a client success relationship manager here. My past life, I was working in student affairs, specifically orientation programs. So I work specifically with our EDU clients. I manage a number of accounts that work with Guidebook. So, Leilani.
And I am Leilani, and I am the events assistant at Northeastern University, currently working on our Boston campus, but we do some events at some of our other campuses as well. So it's kind of a inter-network team. We do a lot of exciting things, which I'm happy to talk to you about in our later slides. So just to keep things rolling, as I mentioned, I'm part of the admissions events team here at Northeastern University. That includes, starting from left to right, Katie, who's the Associate Director of Admissions Events, Ashlyn, who is an event specialist, me, events assistant, Ryan, another event specialist, and Allie, who is the Senior Associate Director of Admissions Programming. And the five of us together work to put all of our both in-person and virtual events for Northeastern related to prospective and admitted students. So what does that mean? At Northeastern, we have a lot of interest. We have a lot of students that are looking to apply, a lot of students who do apply and get admitted, and we want to make sure we're getting them as much information as possible for them to be able to make a decision about where they're applying to school and which school they want to eventually commit to. So as we just wrapped up our fall semester, we had our last early decision visit day this past Friday. Those are for students who are interested in applying to early decision, maybe haven't applied early decision and are interested in the benefits, and just an opportunity for them to come to the Boston campus and take a look around. That'll be typically about 140 students and 250 total attendees, so a little over 100 guests that come with them. And our big show-stopping event of the fall is Preview Day. That's about 680 students and 1,300 total guests. And that is an invite-only event in which we bring students in from all around the country that we are hoping to convince them to apply to Northeastern. We seem that they will be a good fit for the university. So we bring them on there. That is a one-day event. And the early decision visit days are 3 in the fall, typically 1 per month. Then the spring semester is kind of our big time, our busy time. We have our early decision welcome days, so students that applied early decision and were admitted with a binding decision. That's typically about 370 students and 850 total guests per day, and we'll have between 2 and 3 of those in the spring, typically between February and March. We'll have our Oakland Welcome Day, so Northeastern has another undergraduate campus in Oakland, California, and we will have about 250 students, about 450 guests. This was a little higher in 2024, so that's kind of an old number, but just around that number. It has an asterisk because that was the one event in 2024 that we did not use Guidebook for. All of the other events that you'll see on the screen, we did use Guidebook, but our big main kind of my entire job the entire year is leading up to our Boston Welcome Days. We host those 6 times, so it'll be a Friday, Saturday, Sunday one weekend, and a Friday, Saturday, Sunday another weekend, and each individual day has about 550 students, 1,600 total guests. These are big, big, big days, and as I'll get into in the next couple of slides, the way we were doing things before wasn't working and we needed a change for our agendas. And just to give you some extra context as to the audience of who we're appealing to at these types of events, Northeastern is kind of a unique school. We have a lot of different ways for students to come into Northeastern in their first year. They could be admitted directly to the Boston campus. They can be admitted directly to the Oakland campus. They could be part of the NUN program, in which they'll spend their first semester in a different country at a study abroad school all over the world. This was retired this year, but current students are in this program, the Global Scholars Program, in which they'll do 1 semester on the Oakland campus, 1 semester on the London campus. This is being switched over, and we are starting off in our New York City campus. We recently had a partnership with Marymount Manhattan College in New York City, so that will be New York City scholars for 1 year. We have London scholars where they go to London for 1 year. We also have NU Immerse, which is for students that need English language education. We have Foundation Year for students first generation of the Boston area. We have Torch Scholars, which is also first generation students. It's a lot of different things to keep track of, and any one student that's coming to one of our Boston Welcome Days could be in any number of these programs. So when you try and make an agenda for students like this, it can get really complicated really quickly. This is just for 1 day. And for context, when I mentioned our Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we'll have of our I think 10 academic colleges, health sciences, arts, media, and design, science, business, engineering, our undeclared program, among others. Different groups of those students will come on different days. So this will be, I think, a typical Saturday where we'll have 4 of our colleges, our health sciences college, arts, media, and design, science, and business are all coming on this 1 day. If a student has a major in the health sciences, say they're a nursing major, and they've been admitted through the NUN program that I talked about, and they're trying to figure out, of the tens of sessions that we're having on our Boston Welcome Days, where they're supposed to go, looking at this agenda, it's like navigating a maze. There's a lot of information. There are a lot of sessions happening at the same time. There are a lot of different audiences that this is going to. There's sessions for NUN. There's sessions for Bouvet. There's sessions for the entire college. Financial aid, housing. There's a lot of information that's being given. A lot of these sessions are happening at the same time. And there's a lot of information that we need to fit onto a single sheet of paper. And if one of these pieces of information changes last minute, we need to reprint every single one of those agendas, and that's expensive and that's stressful, and it's a lot. It was a lot. And come the end of the season and we went through our surveys of students and families that had attended these events, they had similar feelings to us. They wanted to see the agenda ahead of time rather than having it handed to them at check-in so they could plan their day out. They were confused trying to navigate the agenda. It required some deciphering. They wanted to see the agenda in a digital form. Maybe they wanted to have it on their phone. They wanted to look at it before they came. And like I said, so they could plan out their day. We felt the same way about this, and we thought something needed to change. Come CIVSA 2023, Katie, who I mentioned before, attended the conference and was talking to Sarah on the right here, who was the representative at the time, about Guidebook. And we decided that this seemed like a really, really excellent idea and would work very well for our events. So if you are following along and you want to see what we changed and what the attendees of our Boston Welcome Days could see on their guidebook, feel free to scan that QR code. It's a kind of dummy version, so feel free to play around with it. That's not our real guide, it's a copy of it. But I'll give you guys a couple seconds to look at that before I switch over onto the next screen.
This will also be sent out afterwards. So if you don't have your phone on you or anything, don't panic. There will be a chance to see it afterwards as well.
Right. Okay, got enough time. Okay, I'm gonna switch over. So this is what it looked like to us. This is what it looked like to our attendees. We were able to fit so much more information into the guide. You can see on this left panel here, we had the Making the Most of Welcome Days, which basically just walks people through how to use the Guidebook app and how they can kind of set their schedule. We have the full schedule. There's the My Schedule feature, which I'll get into in a second. We were able to give the Wi-Fi password, parking confirmation, and the code for the parking garage for them to park for free, campus map, information about campus tours, student financial services, the bookstore hours, if they wanted to take down notes, all of that was included, which was so much more information than we could have given them in just a single sheet of paper. This second panel here is what the full agenda looked like. So if I'm coming in on a Friday and I want to see every single thing that's happening, it's kind of hard to fit into one screen, but they could scroll through the entire agenda. And this is the real kicker, this was what was so important for their students that are coming in the different colleges, they're coming in the different programs. If I, just to go with my my fake student before, if I'm a student in the Bouvet College of Health Sciences and I was admitted to the NUN program and I want to see generic university programming, then I can narrow down this big schedule into just things that are relevant to me. So this is the tracks feature in which you can assign different categories to different sessions. And we have sessions that are just relevant to health sciences, just relevant to NUN. So if a student wants to see sessions that are only relevant to those things, they can very easily go through the categories and narrow down that big schedule into something a lot smaller and easier to manage. And then one step further, if they want to build out their schedule for the day, they say, okay, I have a bunch of things going on at one time, but I'm really interested in campus tours and I'm really interested in this pre-med and pre-health session. They can use the My Schedule feature in which they click on a session and add it to their own personalized schedule. So then even further trimming it down, only sessions that they added to their own schedule are showing up rather than this big long list of sessions before, or as we saw before, this monster of sessions. This can get condensed into something as easy to understand as a My Schedule, which is a feature I love about this app. It is so, so, so helpful. For more context for what our welcome days looked like this year, this is over the 6-day period, so the 2 weekends. We had over 2,000 students, over 3,700 guests in addition to those students, so 5,700 attendees over 6 days overall. Students tended to bring between 1 and 2 guests, closer on the 2 guest side. So an average group of people was about 3 people, between 2 and 3 people. Again, 5,750 total attendees over 6 days. And of the attendees over that time for our guide, we had over 3,600 unique downloads of the app, which meant that every student, plus some of their guests, 0 and 1 guest, would download the guide, which is exactly what we want to see. That means people are able to understand how to download it, they're able to use it easily, and everybody is able to access this. And this, love this. I mentioned before that one of the biggest pieces of customer service or feedback we got was that people wanted to see the agenda ahead of time. They wanted to be able to plan out their day. So this spike is the actual weekend. Our welcome days were happening April 5th, 6th, and 7th, and April 19th, 20th, and 21st. This spike is when we sent out the get ready to attend email ahead of time. And just for context, we use Slate for all of our email communications and our application evaluations. So we sent out an email through Slate to all of the people that were registered for the event saying, hey, get ready to attend these events and download the Guidebook app. And you can see this huge spike of people that were able to download and look at that schedule ahead of time. This reduced my emails of can I look at the agenda by so much. When I tell you for 2023 welcome days, half of my emails, and I was getting over 50 emails a day, half of them were, can I see the agenda? What's the agenda? What am I doing? This is fantastic. Love this spike in people downloading the guide ahead of time. Secondly, going over this, the second piece of feedback that we get is that it's confusing to look at the agenda. This is the most frequent menu items launched. So when people are opening the app, what are they going to? You'll notice that my schedule is more than the full welcome day schedule. So this meant not only did people use the My Schedule and were able to navigate it and make their own agenda of the things that they specifically were interested in, but they used it more often than the full schedule. So this was easy for them to understand. They were able to use it and they used it more frequently than the full schedule with all of the items in there, which is fantastic. And survey says the results were great. These are comments from our feedback survey after the welcome days were over. I really love the way everything was organized through Guidebook app and all the signage. The Guidebook app is useful, and I thought the whole thing was very organized and informative. The app is also very helpful. We didn't get a single negative comment about Guidebook. The only thing that people had to say about Guidebook was positive, was that it was helpful. There was no complaints about the agenda or being confused, which was really, really cool. So what changed? I kind of went over this a little bit, but really, if we're doing the black and white, seamless communication about the agenda. We were able to make on-the-spot changes to the agenda, which happened. We accidentally put a session in the wrong room. We were able to change that day of, where we would never have been able to do that with printed agendas, and it would have been really expensive to make that change. We were able to communicate about Guidebook through our Slate emails ahead of time. So again, reducing that customer service, asking where the agenda was. We were able to send it out ahead of time and use the security feature of having a password. So only people that got that email were able to access it with the password. So not just anybody could see the event, which was super helpful. Saving staff time. I'm the staff that it was saving time. I'm the only person that answers emails at the admissions events inbox. So me not having to answer all of those emails about the agenda. Being able to upload, we use the bulk upload feature where you put all of your sessions in an Excel sheet and then you just upload it all at once rather than having to manually put every session in there. Super helpful. I was able to build out the guide if I needed to make any changes. I could use it year over year. I was able to take our preview day guide from last year, put it in for preview day this year, just change some information. It took me a quarter of the time than it did to even make the initial Excel sheet to upload, putting that up. So saving staff time, super, super helpful for me. And again, the enhanced guest experience, people were able to focus so much more on what they wanted to do rather than how they wanted to get where they were going. People had their phone with them the entire time. They were able to use the location feature to click on a session. Okay, this session is in this building, and use Google Maps to direct them where they need to go. So the navigation was easier. The being able to see what was happening at the same time was easier. The personal schedules, again, that people use, it was just so much more smooth, so much easier to access. We got questions about how do I open this up on Guidebook, not where is this, I'm confused, what's happening at the same time, which I would much rather answer questions about Guidebook because then people can look at their own guide and navigate after they've left us, which is so, so, so helpful. So if it's not evident from my enthusiasm here, it was a resounding success, and we will continue to be using it and adding new features into our guidebook for this upcoming spring season. It was completely seamless for the past fall. The only thing that, our learnings from this past fall that I would implement is for the Boston Welcome Days, those 6-day sessions, we made a point to, for about 5 or 10 minutes, for the sessions that everybody was attending, say, hi, we're using our agenda on Guidebook. Here's how you go through Guidebook. Let's walk through it together. Here's how you use the My Schedule feature. We didn't do that for preview day this year. And we did get some feedback about people being confused as to how to use the Guidebook. So that's something we're definitely planning on doing again in the future, is making sure we take the time to explain how Guidebook works, because people unfortunately, it can't just like pick it up and figure it out. Um, I personally think the UI is very intuitive, but you know, if we have a lot of things going on at once, it's less understandable. So definitely making sure that you explain to your guests how to use it, have multiple touch points, is super helpful. But that was really the only thing. I, it's so much easier now doing this than making the physical agendas. Um, yeah, so, and I know Casey had a little bit that she wanted to talk about Indiana
Yeah.
Tech, so pass the baton over to her.
Well, and the nice thing too is this is replicatable. Is that a word? This is not just Northeastern. We actually did a case study with Indiana Tech. Andrea Crilly, if you know her, she's an absolute gem. But we did a case study with Indiana Tech, specifically their admissions office as well. We were looking at the year before they were using Guidebook. How long was it taking you to prepare materials? How much were you spending on printing, you know, all of the paper agendas or brochures, reprinting, like adding in little sheets if things got changed? But then we also tracked yield, which was pretty interesting. So just the transition from not like paper agendas to Guidebook, they saved 370 hours. So it used to be a team of 5. It took a team of 5 about 400 hours total over the course of a few months to kind of get everything prepared and organized. And after Guidebook was implemented, it went from a team of 5 down to a team of 2, and they were able to accomplish everything in 25 hours. So that's a 94% reduction in time. And just thinking of like, what can you do with 375 hours? I mean, that's crazy. Their budget went down, so they actually spent less on Guidebook than they did on printing materials for just one of their events. And then the one thing that I really love to see, because we talk about, yeah, it makes your staff life easier and it might save you money, but what's the impact it's having on students? How can you justify it to your bosses and their bosses? They saw a direct correlation with yield numbers. So in 2022, I believe, their yield was around 40%. And then after like introducing Guidebook, it has increased to 82%. I believe this statistic is also a little bit outdated, and I believe now it's a little bit higher, as they've continued to kind of fine tune and refine their approach. So yeah, it's definitely been very interesting to kind of see their impact in a quantifiable way. So
With that, we have our wonderful community resource dog, Cooper, looking very apt for some questions. I know there were a couple in the Q&A that I saw already, so I'm happy to take the first one. Do you think this would still be beneficial for smaller schools with smaller events? Honestly, yes. I think that this is kind of the same at, kind of the same as our early decision welcome days or early decision visit days, that those are, you know, between 200 and 300 attendees for the event, and we still use Guidebook. Honestly, because it's just easier. If we're using the interface already, if we're already emailing them ahead of time saying, this is, you know, we're going to be using Guidebook for our agenda ahead of time, that you're able to, so much more than a paper agenda, put out information day of, put a bunch more in, you're able to fit so much more into there that, you know, I'm able to put these slides from our mock lecture into the Guidebook. So if people later want to go review the slides, you know, that's not something you can really do with a paper agenda. You're able to put the parking code in there for the garage. You're able to have real-time updates. You can set notifications, anything like that. I think for even a smaller event that we've seen, it's still so much easier and more helpful than having a paper agenda that you need to keep track of, that you might need to make changes to. That, yeah, I think if you're considering it, I think it's definitely worth talking about and looking into, even on a smaller scale like that.
I actually can't see Q&A.
Oh,
Um,
it's in the more on the right. It's not immediately in the bottom. Oh,
Well, I see
oh,
Q&A, but it's just showing empty.
sure.
So I will follow your lead, Leilani.
I'm not seeing any other questions in the box here, but
Okay.
I'm happy
Anything
to
else?
continue chatting if anybody has any other questions they want to put in the box, or
Yeah.
we can talk about some FAQs if there's anything that, folks that have not used Guidebook in a university setting before, if there's any other features that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, Casey, because I know that there's a lot that we don't use that could be beneficial in a EDU environment.
Yeah, we had a few recently launched within the last few months. And I know our team is also working on some things coming up. So within the last, I'll just say the last year to be more accurate, I suppose. We introduced a feature called Leaderboard. So one of the questions we get a lot is, okay, so it's this resource, you're sharing out information. How are we making sure that people are actually using it? And so this was actually a client request that we have introduced. But if you're using Leaderboard, you can actually give people points for taking action in your guide and utilizing the guide. So that could be adding something to your My Schedule, posting a photo if there's a photo album enabled, commenting on Interact, which works very similarly to a social feed. You can make connections with people. You can fill out surveys and forms, all sorts of different things you can do, things that we want students to do to take advantage of all the resources that you've built out for them, and they earn points for it. And so there's a live leaderboard in the guide that updates in real time with who has, who are the top 3 scorers. So a lot of campuses are using that as a way to like give out additional swag or incentivize some sort of, reward for who can rack up the most points, um, over the course of this event. So that's been a lot of fun. We also have something coming up that is, is public, yes. We have something coming up that I'm super excited about. So right now we have what's called Connect. So people who are in the guide and logged in can create a little profile for themselves. They can choose to connect with other people in the guide as well. And when you connect with someone, you have one-on-one messaging. So we've been asked, okay, how can we expand that? What if, we want to put people in small groups and have them be able to like communicate as a group? So we have what's called channels coming out hopefully in Q1 2025 is what we've been told. That will open up the opportunity for group chats. It'll open up the opportunity for kind of open forums where you can set a theme and people can opt in, to like talk about certain topics. So that in the world of admissions could be having a channel for specific majors, or colleges. And so students who are interested in those majors can join in, connect with other students, or maybe even faculty and staff who are in that channel, ask questions, get to know each other, in kind of a moderated space. So that's coming out, and that's very exciting. I'm very excited for that.
That is exciting.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
we
know if
do
you knew
get,
that. That's like a little sneak peek.
yeah, this is the first time hearing about I think there was like maybe rumblings the last time we talked about it, but that's very
Well,
exciting that that's
it's
a feature.
official now, like, it's
Okay,
coming.
very cool. We got a couple of questions here about some like follow-up email information. One person asked if we could share the slides, which absolutely I'm happy to do that. And the second is we just implemented Guidebook at our institution and we're still learning the best way to use it. Would you be able to share the content of the email you're using to guide families in using the app? I'm completely fine with doing that. We had two separate, so there's the initial email that comes from our marketing team basically saying like, hey, you're signed up to attend Welcome Day. Here's what you need to know before you attend. And that's a small kind of blurb that guides them to using the app. And then when they get on the app, there's a making the most of Welcome Day that has some general information about how to use Guidebook in the My Schedule feature. I'm happy to share both of those things. And the final question, is there anything you could do to encourage families to submit evaluations? we don't really provide like incentives, but basically once the event is over, this is again a Slate feature, but after so the welcome days will happen Friday, Saturday, Sunday. On Monday, we'll send an email saying, thanks so much for attending. Please fill out our survey. And that again is part of Slate, but it's just a follow-up email to everybody who attended the event, asking them to fill the survey out. We typically have about 10%, maybe less than 10% of people attend, fill out the survey, but it's still helpful to get that information there that, you might not know otherwise.
Y You could also use push notifications for that. That's, something that I typically advise, the groups that I work with to do. So after an event wraps up, if you if you planned on sending some sort of, "Hey, thanks so much for attending," you can then link your, a survey and say, "We wanna gather your feedback." There are some groups that will actually just have that survey open on their menu at all times, so, like, constantly gathering feedback, and then there's also a way to you can attach, like, maybe, like, a short form to every single session, so if you wanted to get session-specific feedback, you could attach it that way as well. Curious to kind of know what you're hoping to capture, but, that's definitely something that you can work with your account manager on.
Another question here, have you completely foregone print materials? We still receive feedback mostly from faculty and parents that they need paper agendas. For the most part, yes, but we've also had similar feedback saying like either if a family is having trouble accessing a guidebook or if they're coming up to us and saying, hey, I want the code for the parking garage. And I asked, do you have the guidebook app? And they say no. They're like, oh, rather than have them guide it or download guidebook just as they're about to leave, we'll hand them a paper copy of the printing code or of the parking code that's printed out. Or if there's a family that their phone just is not working, we'll hand them a paper agenda. They're not as pretty as these agendas here. They're literally just the Excel sheet with some formatting. But we'll have maybe 20 of those for a big welcome day. But that's, there's 20 and then there's 2000. So it's a lot smaller. So we do have some backup print materials for those situations. Yes, we don't want to completely forego, especially for accessibility, completely forego the print materials. But even just that's something that we print in the office ourselves rather than having to go through graphics and have the whole design team do it. So it's a lot smaller to kind of take care of that.
That just triggered a thought in my head, Leilani. I know so from my, like, orientation days, anytime that we wanted to present something to prospective or new students, it had to be cleared by, like, marketing and communications and branding, and, like, everything had to be a cohesive, university experience. Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like from your experience, what that looks like in Guidebook, to kind of make everything look and feel Northeastern?
Yeah. So we work very closely with our marketing communications team. We have a team specifically for admissions, marketing communication. Northeastern's a really big school, so we have different departments for marketing for different areas. But we'll meet with them about once a week and just to talk about our needs for our events. And one of the things that we do with them is when we're doing session titles and descriptions in Guidebook, those need to be approved by marketing. So if a college partner will, give their title and description for their event. That still needs to kind of be seen and approved by the marketing team in order for the messaging and the wording. For example, the global entry programs used to be called pathway programs, but we've kind of changed the wording of that for, marketing reasons and for a bunch of reasons, basically. But that's something like that if, we're going through and we somehow miss that a term that we don't use anymore is in those titles and descriptions, marketing is going to go through and catch that, which is really helpful. Also, the icons on the sidebar, I don't know if you could see here. These icons are like Northeastern, not Northeastern branded, but they're more in line with Northeastern branding. They came from like a set of media that we had already, that this is not the generic Guidebook icons. You can see kind of this banner here with the Northeastern University logo. All of that was done by our marketing team in partnership. They gave me like, this is what we're going to be putting in. Yeah, so we kind of work with them to get those title descriptions, icons, the look and feel of the guide as close to Northeastern branding as we can.
Nice. Yeah. But it's nice that you can change it. It doesn't look like Guidebook.
Yeah.
It's all Northeastern things.
Lots of red and black in our coloring where we can do it. So somebody else asked, there's an upload feature in the attendee management section. Do you use that to add email addresses into the app prior to the event if they haven't downloaded yet? We personally don't use that. Like I said, we use Slate for our application management and email. So all of that information is in there. So they'll get an email from like through Slate with that information. But Casey, I'm sure you can talk a little bit for
Yeah.
institutions that are using the email feature, how that works. And I know there's accounts that you can make and it's kind of separate there.
Yeah. So that's a really easy way. If you know who will be attending your event, um, it's a really easy way to send out invitations without having to rely on them opening emails because Lord knows students are not always great at that. So, what you can do is you can go to the audience management section. There's a template that you can download for names and emails. Really, only the email is required. So, you can, drop all of those emails in, upload, and it will send them an invitation to that email saying, hey, you, Leilani, have been invited to Boston Welcome Days. Like they're using a mobile guide for it. Here's how to download it. So it it kind of helps supplement whatever other communications you're using. The nice thing about that is when you upload, it will also tell you whether or not they've logged in. So you can see, of the 50 people that I uploaded and sent an invitation to directly from Guidebook, only 25 of them have logged in. So I can easily like select all who have not logged in, resend an invitation. I'm not having to like go in and manage anything super. It's not very time consuming. Like you can just easily say, yep, like resend it to whoever hasn't logged in. Um, Again, helping really drive traffic before the event to make sure that they're in there kind of poking around. Um, to help make sure that like the check-in and maybe registration process is really smooth because they already have it on their phone. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I think that's super helpful. We had another like similar question. Do you use Guidebook for check-in for the day of the event? So again, our institution uses Slate. We use Slate for application, for email tracking, for all of that stuff. So it's easier for us personally to do the event is built in Slate. We do check in through Slate. But I know that there is a feature for Guidebook as well for check-in.
Yeah, so right now there is session verification. So you can um you can check people in for specific sessions. I do believe we've been talking about like a general guide check-in, like, hey, I'm here for the event in general. But as far as like what's available right now, it's for specific sessions. Something that some campuses do is they'll create a session called check-in, and then as people are coming in, scanning them so that it's scanning them into a session, but it's just labeled check-in.
All right. Any other questions? Any other burning things that people want to know?
If you could go to the
Oh yeah.
last slide, please. There is there is a QR code if you want to scan it. I believe it will say SIBSA. You can ignore that. But if you have any questions that we didn't address, or maybe you were a little nervous to put out there in front of the world, feel free to share your information. We'll follow up with you. If you're not using Guidebook and you're curious and just want to like chat with someone about what your options are, happy to connect. And there may be the chance that your campus is already using Guidebook. So that's always a fun surprise sometimes. So amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We will share this afterwards. But thanks for joining. Thanks for asking questions. And hope you have a good rest of your Wednesday.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Bye.